Welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Stay informed with quick, easy-to-listen summaries of our latest articles, perfect for when you're on the go. No reading required. Subscribe for free at mercola.com for the latest health insights.
Hello, and welcome to Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. I'm Ethan Foster, and today we're exploring freckles, sunspots, and moles, those little marks many of us notice in the mirror. These skin spots can reveal important details about your health, so it's crucial to recognize which ones might need extra attention. Joining me is Alara Sky. She has a deep interest in natural approaches to health, and her goal today is to help break down what each of these spots means. Let's begin with what makes freckles, sunspots, and moles distinct.
Thank you, Ethan. When people see small, flat, light brown spots on sun-exposed areas that tend to darken in summer and lighten in winter, those are usually freckles. Sunspots, on the other hand, don't fade seasonally. They often appear on the hands, face, and chest, places that get a lot of sun exposure, and they indicate signs of sun damage over time. Moles can be flat or raised, vary in color from tan to dark brown, and sometimes have hair. They appear in different places, not just where you get the most sun.
Freckles can be a bit confusing because they come and go with the seasons, whereas sunspots and moles generally stay put. Would you explain why freckles shift like that?
Freckles are strongly influenced by genetics and sun exposure. Fair-skinned individuals and those with a family history of freckles are more likely to have them. Freckles typically become darker with frequent sun exposure, which is why they're more noticeable in the summer, and then they fade in winter when sun exposure is reduced. They appear less in newborns and start to show up in childhood after spending time in the sun. There's also a specific gene that determines the type of melanin your body produces, which is closely tied to developing freckles.
Let's talk more about sunspots. They're often referred to as liver spots, which can sound alarming, but that term is actually a misnomer. They're not related to the liver. They appear as flat, brownish patches and result from cumulative sun exposure over many years. Do they pose a health risk?
Sunspots themselves are usually just evidence of past sun exposure, so they don't pose an immediate threat. However, they do reflect long-term sun damage and can grow or become darker if you continue getting too much UV light. While most are harmless, it's important to keep an eye on them. If a sunspot changes in size, color, or has irregular borders, that could be a warning sign of possible skin cancer. In those cases, a medical evaluation is recommended.
Now, regarding moles, many people get nervous when they see them because of the potential for melanoma. Moles can appear in childhood, adolescence, or even later in life. Why do some people have just a few moles while others have many?
Genetics has a big role in how many moles someone might develop. If you have a family history of numerous moles, you're more likely to see them on your skin as well. Some moles are there at birth, while others form as you grow, especially in your teens or during hormone fluctuations, like pregnancy. Sun exposure can also influence the appearance of new moles. While most moles are harmless, it's wise to monitor them regularly to ensure they stay consistent and don't show any warning signs.
Let's discuss those warning signs in more detail. We often hear about checking moles using the ABCDE method. Could you walk us through what each letter stands for?
Certainly. ABCDE is a helpful acronym for spotting potentially problematic moles. A is for asymmetry, when one half of the mole doesn't match the other. B stands for border, if the edges are irregular or blurred. C refers to color, having various shades or unusual colors. D is diameter. Anything larger than about 6 millimeters or the size of a pencil eraser might warrant attention. Lastly, E is evolving. If it's changing in size, shape, or texture, it's time to see a doctor.
That's a clear set of criteria. Let's also talk about why these spots appear in the first place. We've discussed genetics, but sun exposure is often emphasized as well. Can you explain how sunlight contributes to freckles, sunspots, and potentially affects moles?
Sunlight contains ultraviolet, UV, rays that encourage your skin to produce melanin, which is the pigment that gives skin its color. In freckles, the extra melanin is distributed in small clusters, so each freckle gets darker under the sun. Sunspots occur after years of cumulative sun exposure, where melanin is produced more intensely in patches. Moles can also develop or darken with sun exposure, though many are linked to genetics. Regardless of the cause, excessive UV exposure can lead to DNA damage, which is why checking your spots is vital.
Staying on the topic of sun damage, many people assume that any sun exposure is harmful. However, some exposure is necessary for vitamin D production. Dr. Mercola also points out that the amount of linoleic acid in your diet can increase your skin's sensitivity to UV damage. What practical steps can people take to handle sun exposure more thoughtfully?
A balanced approach is key. It's beneficial for overall health to get some sunlight for vitamin D. However, from Dr. Mercola's perspective, it's best to reduce sources of linoleic acid in your diet, commonly found in processed vegetable oils, for at least 6 months before regular sunbathing. High amounts of linoleic acid can lead to more oxidative damage in the skin. Also, limiting sun exposure during peak hours, typically between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., is a wise move, especially before your diet is adjusted.
Let's shift to prevention and monitoring. A monthly skin self-check seems like a reasonable habit. For those who haven't done one before, how would you recommend they get started?
The process is simple. First, stand in a well-lit room with a full-length mirror. Check your entire body from head to toe, including areas that aren't typically exposed to the sun. Use a hand mirror or ask someone to help with your back, scalp, and other hard-to-see places. Look for any new spots and check if existing ones have changed. Jot down notes or take pictures if that helps you track your findings over time.
That's an excellent strategy. In terms of general skin health, Dr. Mercola frequently suggests natural approaches. For example, he talks about foods rich in nutrients that support healthy skin, as well as supplements like niacinamide or methods like Methylene blue. How do they fit into this picture?
Nutritious eating and targeted supplements can play a supportive role. Foods rich in antioxidants help the skin deal with oxidative stress. Niacinamide, a form of vitamin B3, has been discussed for supporting skin health and helping regulate oil production. Methylene blue is another compound Dr. Mercola highlights in certain contexts. These additions can be part of a comprehensive approach that includes balanced sun exposure, routine skin checks, and staying mindful of your overall lifestyle choices.
It seems like paying attention to our skin is an important part of overall wellness. I'd like to address a few frequently asked questions listeners might have. First, how can someone distinguish between a freckle and a sunspot?
Freckles are typically small and lighten up in the winter, whereas sunspots stay the same color regardless of the season. If a mark you have persists year-round and seems more like a patch than a small dot, it's likely a sunspot. Freckles tend to darken with sun and fade when there's less exposure, so observing seasonal changes is a quick way to tell them apart.
Another common concern is whether moles can turn into cancer. We touched on the ABCDE checklist, but is there anything else listeners should know?
Most moles don't become cancerous. However, you should be extra watchful of any mole that appears later in adulthood, looks very different from your other moles, or shows any of those ABCDE red flags. It's best to get a medical opinion promptly if something seems off. Early detection is a crucial line of defense against serious skin conditions.
A third question, can you summarize the best way to protect skin from the sun while still getting essential vitamin D?
Aim for moderate sun exposure outside of peak UV hours if you haven't adjusted your dietary linoleic acid levels. Once you've cut back on vegetable oils for about 6 months, your skin may be more resilient to sun damage. You can slowly increase your time in the sun. Keep in mind that using shade or covering up when necessary can also help you manage UV exposure effectively without missing out on important benefits like vitamin D.
Finally, many people wonder when they should see a doctor about a skin spot. Can you offer a clear recommendation?
If you notice any spot that changes rapidly in size, shape, color, or texture, or if it itches or bleeds, it's wise to make an appointment. When in doubt, it's better to be safe and have a dermatologist take a closer look. Awareness and swift action can make all the difference in catching and resolving issues early on.
Before we conclude, let's recap the main points. Freckles are small, light brown spots that typically darken in the sun and fade in winter. Sunspots are flat, brownish patches linked to long-term sun exposure and don't change with the seasons. Moles can vary in appearance and location, often due to genetic factors, and should be monitored for any abnormalities. Protecting your skin involves mindful sun exposure, especially if your diet is high in linoleic acid, and making monthly skin checks a habit. Would you add anything?
It's also important to remember that each person's skin is unique, shaped by both genetics and lifestyle. By staying proactive, monitoring existing spots, watching for new ones, and practicing prudent sun safety measures, you'll be in the best position to preserve skin health. Incorporating nutrient-dense foods and possibly supporting supplements can round out this approach for long-term wellness.
Thank you for explaining these points so clearly. I hope our listeners now feel better equipped to understand the different types of skin spots they may see. Remember, if you're concerned about any changes, a healthcare professional should be your next step. We appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Ethan, and thanks to everyone who tuned in. Paying attention to these skin signs is an effective way to stay informed about your overall health. We look forward to returning with more discussions aimed at supporting you on your journey toward well-being.
That's all for this episode of Dr. Mercola's Cellular Wisdom. Be sure to join us next time for more insights and actionable information on natural approaches to health. Until then, keep observing those spots, stay mindful of your sun exposure, and remember that you hold the power to make informed decisions about your skin. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe now and click the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.